The massive space station called Nexus Prime hung in the darkness between stars like a giant crystal. Its walls were made of clear materials that sparkled with rainbow colors. Inside the biggest room, 12 different types of alien beings sat in a circle. This was the Galactic Council, and they were very angry. Ambassador Veltar stood in the center of the room. He was tall like a tree, with 6 legs and arms that looked like sharp sticks. His bug-like eyes moved around the room as he spoke. His voice made a clicking sound that the translation machines turned into words everyone could understand. "Fellow council members," Veltar began, "we have a serious problem. The humans are getting too bold. They do not listen to our rules anymore." A creature that looked like a floating jellyfish with purple skin made angry bubbling sounds. "They have taken 47 worlds in just 200 years. This is too fast. Other species take thousands of years to spread this much." Another alien covered in silver scales and breathing water through a tank around his head slammed his fist on the table. "They refuse to pay the tribute tax. Every species must pay tribute to the council. It has been this way for 10,000 years. That is not the worst part," said a being made of what looked like living rock. Her voice sounded like stones grinding together. "They are sharing their technology with primitive species. They are teaching weapons making to the Cathani. They showed the Vorthak how to build faster ships. This goes against all our laws." Veltar nodded his triangular head. "Yes, this is very dangerous. We keep certain species weak for good reasons. If they become strong, they might challenge us. The humans do not understand the careful balance we have built." A small, furry creature with big ears spoke up. "The humans say they believe in something called freedom. They tell other species they should not have to follow our rules if they do not want to." This made many council members make angry noises. Freedom was a dangerous idea. For thousands of years, the council had kept peace by making sure everyone knew their place. Strong species like theirs ruled. Weak species served them. Everyone was happy because everyone knew what was expected. "The humans are like a disease," Veltar continued. "Everywhere they go, they spread these dangerous ideas. Species that have served us faithfully for centuries are starting to ask questions. Some even refuse to send their tribute payments." A being that looked like a walking tree with glowing leaves rustled angrily. "My people report that 3 of our mining colonies have stopped sending metal shipments. When we asked why, they said the humans told them they could keep what they dig up for themselves." "Impossible," said the jellyfish creature. "Those colonies exist to serve us. That is their purpose. They have food and shelter. What more could they want?" "Apparently they want what the humans call self-rule," the tree being replied sadly. Veltar spread his forearms wide. "You see? This is exactly what I mean. The humans are destroying everything we have built. They must be stopped before their madness spreads further." "What do you suggest?" asked the rock creature. "An ultimatum," Veltar said firmly. "We give them one final chance to see reason. They must stop expanding to new worlds. They must submit to council oversight of all their colonies. They must pay tribute like everyone else. And most importantly, they must stop interfering with our subjects." "And if they refuse?" asked the scaly water breather. "Then we show them what happens to species that challenge the council." Veltar replied with a cold smile. "We send the enforcement fleet." The enforcement fleet was the council's ultimate weapon. It had ships from all 12 member species. Their technology was thousands of years more advanced than anything humans had. No species had ever survived a visit from the enforcement fleet when they came to enforce council law. "How many ships do the humans have?" asked the furry creature. "Intelligence reports say they have perhaps 60 warships total," Veltar answered. "Primitive things made of metal and simple weapons. Nothing that could threaten even one of our ships." "And we would bring how many ships?" the jellyfish being asked. 300 of our finest warships," Veltar said proudly. "The humans will see them and realize they have no choice but to surrender." The rock creature laughed, a sound like an avalanche. 300 against 60? "The humans will wet themselves with fear when they see our fleet." "It will be over quickly," agreed the tree being. "They will beg for mercy and promise to follow all our rules. Then we can go back to the proper way of doing things." One by one, the council members voted. It was unanimous. They would send an ultimatum to Earth. The humans would have 72 standard hours to agree to all council demands. Veltar activated the communication system. The message would travel through space faster than light, reaching Earth in just a few hours. He smiled as he began to record. "To the leaders of the species called humanity," he began in his most threatening voice, By order of the Galactic Council, you are commanded to cease all expansion activities immediately. You will submit all your colonies to Council oversight. You will pay tribute equal to 30% of your total production. You will stop interfering with our subject species. He paused to let the weight of his words sink in. You have 72 standard hours to respond with your complete agreement to these terms. If you refuse or if you do not respond, the Council Enforcement Fleet will visit your worlds. We have 300 warships, each more powerful than your entire military combined. Resistance is pointless. Compliance is your only option. Veltar ended the recording with satisfaction. Around the room, other council members were already celebrating. The human problem would soon be solved. Should we prepare the enforcement fleet now? Asked the water-breathing alien. Yes, Veltar replied. Have them gather at the staging area. When the humans surrender, we will want to send a few ships to make sure they follow through on their promises. And if they are foolish enough to refuse? Asked the rock creature. Veltar's laugh sounded like breaking glass. Then we will make an example of them that will be remembered for 10,000 years. No species will ever again think to challenge the Council. The message shot through space toward the small blue planet called Earth. None of the Council members were worried. They had done this many times before. Species would always choose survival over pride. The humans might talk big about freedom and independence, but when faced with the reality of the Council's power, they would fold like everyone else. They had no idea that humans were different from every other species they had ever encountered. They did not know that humans had a saying, "Give me liberty or give me death." They did not understand that some things were more important to humans than just staying alive. Most importantly, they did not know that humans had been preparing for this day for a very long time. The message traveled through the void, carrying with it the Council's arrogance and certainty. Soon they would learn that some species do not break when threatened. Some species get stronger when pushed. And some species, when told they must choose between freedom and safety, will choose freedom every single time. The Council thought they knew everything about war and power and control. They were about to get an education from the best teachers in the galaxy. Angry humans with nothing left to lose. The secure meeting room beneath the United Earth Government building in Geneva was completely silent. President Chen Wei-Lin sat at the head of the long table, her dark eyes fixed on the holographic display that had just finished playing the Council's message. Around her, the emergency cabinet members looked shocked and angry. Defense Secretary Martinez was the first to speak. 72 hours to surrender our independence, or they send 300 warships to destroy us. His voice was tight with barely controlled rage. The arrogance of these aliens is beyond belief. Admiral Sarah Okafor, head of the Colonial Defense Force, stood up and activated the room's tactical displays. Star charts appeared in the air, showing human colonies scattered across dozens of star systems. Red dots marked the locations of Council member worlds. Let me be clear about our situation, Admiral Okafor said grimly. We have 63 combat-ready vessels. That includes everything from heavy cruisers down to patrol boats. Our colonies are spread thin, with maybe 5 or 6 ships protecting each system. Secretary of State Williams shook her head. 300 ships against 63. How is this even a fight? It's not, Admiral Okafor replied bluntly. In a straight battle, they would destroy us completely. Their technology is thousands of years ahead of ours. One of their ships could probably take on 10 of ours and win. Foreign Intelligence Director Hayes pulled up another display. This is what we know about Council military capabilities. Their shields can stop anything we can throw at them. Their weapons can cut through our armor like paper. They have faster-than-light communication that lets them coordinate across vast distances instantly. So what you're all telling me, President Chen said quietly, is that we have no choice but to surrender. The room fell silent again. Everyone knew the answer, but nobody wanted to say it out loud. Defense Secretary Martinez cleared his throat. Madam President, perhaps we could negotiate better terms. Maybe we could agree to slow our expansion, pay a smaller tribute. We don't have to accept their demands exactly as stated. You think they want to negotiate? President Chen asked. That message wasn't an offer to talk. It was an order to obey or die. Director Hayes nodded grimly. Our intelligence suggests the Council has never negotiated with anyone. They give orders. Species either follow those orders or get crushed. Admiral Okafor brought up tactical simulations on the display. Even if we gathered every ship we have in one place, Even if we fought with everything we've got, we might destroy 20 or 30 of their ships before they wiped us out. And that's being optimistic. Treasury Secretary Kumar spoke up nervously. The tribute they're demanding would bankrupt us. 30% of all production from 47 colonies? We'd barely have enough left to feed our own people. That's the point, President Chen said. They don't want partners. They want slaves who work for them and shut up about it. She stood up and walked to the large window that looked out over Lake Geneva. The sun was setting, painting the sky orange and red. For a long moment, she just stared at the peaceful scene. Madam President? Martinez asked carefully. What are your orders? Chen turned around and everyone in the room was surprised by her expression. Instead of fear or despair, she was smiling. It was not a happy smile. It was the kind of smile a predator made before attacking. Do you know what my grandmother used to tell me? Chen asked. She lived through the Third World War, when the African coalition almost destroyed Europe with bioweapons. She said something I've never forgotten. Chen, humans are like cockroaches. You can step on us, poison us, burn us, blow us up, and somehow we always survive. And we always remember who tried to kill us. The cabinet members looked confused. Where was she going with this? My grandmother also told me stories about the old days, Chen continued. About how humans used to fight each other all the time. Wars that lasted decades, battles where millions died. But you know what happened every time someone thought they had humans beaten? She walked back to the table and placed her hands on its surface, leaning forward. We got back up, she said simply. We learned from our defeats. We adapted. We found new ways to fight. And eventually, we won. Admiral Okafor frowned. Madam President, with respect, this isn't a human enemy. We're talking about alien technology that's thousands of years more advanced than ours. So? Chen asked. Do you think technology is everything? The Council has better ships, better weapons, better shields. But they've never fought humans before. They don't know what we're capable of when we're desperate. She activated her personal terminal and began typing commands. Director Hayes, I want you to send a message to every human colony. Every mining station, every research outpost. Use the quantum entanglement network. Make sure it can't be intercepted. What message? Hayes asked. Operation Broken Arrow is now active. All contingency plans are authorized. Every sleeper agent, every hidden weapons cache, every secret project we've been working on for the past 50 years. Activate it all. The room erupted in shocked voices. Operation Broken Arrow was a legend. A rumor that most people thought was just paranoid fantasy. Madam President, Martinez said urgently, are you saying that Operation Broken Arrow is real? Chen's smile got wider and more dangerous. Oh, it's very real. Did you think we spent the last 50 years just building colonies and trading with aliens? We've been preparing for this day since we first learned we weren't alone in the galaxy. She turned to Admiral Okafor. How long will it take to implement the Venus Protocol? Admiral Okafor's eyes went wide. Venus Protocol? That's completely insane. The Council will think we're monsters. The Council already thinks we're inferior beings who should work in their minds, Chen replied coldly. Let them learn the difference between inferior and unpredictable. Secretary Williams spoke up nervously. What exactly are you planning to tell the Council? President Chen sat back down and composed herself. When she spoke again, her voice was calm and professional, but everyone in the room could hear the steel underneath. We're going to send them a very simple message. We're going to tell them that humanity's answer is no. We will not surrender our colonies. We will not pay tribute. We will not stop helping other species who want to be free. And if they want to try to make us, they're welcome to come and see what happens. And then? Martinez asked. Chen's expression didn't change. Then we show them why humans have survived every extinction event, every war, every disaster that this universe has thrown at us for the last 100,000 years. She stood up and looked around the room at her advisors.
Gentlemen, ladies, we are about to fight a war that most people would say we cannot win.
The enemy has better technology, more ships, thousands of years of experience. By every logical measure, we should surrender right now. She paused and let that sink in. But we're not going to surrender. We're going to fight. And we're going to win. Not because we're stronger than they are, but because we're willing to do things they would never think of. Because we're crazy enough to believe that freedom is worth dying for. The message went out 3 hours later. It was short and simple. To the Galactic Council, humanity's response to your ultimatum is no. We will not submit to your authority. We will not abandon our colonies. We will not stop helping others who seek freedom. If you wish to try to force us, you are welcome to attempt it. Come and take what you can. As the message traveled through space toward Nexus Prime, President Chen sat alone in her office. On her desk was a picture of her grandmother, the woman who had survived the Third World War and lived to see humanity reach the stars. "Well, grandmother," Chen whispered to the picture, "they're about to learn that humans don't break. We bend, we adapt, we endure, but we don't break." Outside her window, the lights of Geneva sparkled in the darkness. Soon those lights might be under attack by alien ships. But Chen wasn't afraid. She was excited. The council thought they knew what humans were capable of. They were about to get an education. Admiral Kethmore stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the human home system grow larger on the view screen. Behind him, 300 of the most advanced warships in the galaxy moved in perfect formation. Each ship was a masterpiece of technology, with shields that could stop nuclear weapons and weapons that could crack planets in half. "Sir," his communications officer reported, "we are receiving no surrender signals from the human worlds. They appear to be preparing for battle." Kethmore laughed, a sound like wind chimes in a storm. His people, the Dominion, had conquered 17 star systems and never lost a single battle. "Let them prepare. It will make no difference." On the tactical display, 63 human ships moved toward them. They looked like toys compared to the Council fleet. Small, simple metal constructions with primitive chemical rockets and basic energy weapons. "Look at them," Kethmore said to his bridge crew. "They actually think they can fight us. It would be funny if it weren't so pathetic." His weapons officer, a being with silver skin and 4 arms, studied the human formation. "Sir, they appear to be spreading out in a defensive line. Standard tactics for an inferior force. How long until we are in firing range?" Kethmore asked. 15 minutes, sir." Kethmore activated the fleet communication system. "All ships, this is Admiral Kethmore. When we enter weapons range, target the largest human vessels first. I want this over quickly so we can get to the real business of occupying their worlds." But something bothered him about the human formation. They weren't acting like a species facing certain death. Their ships moved with confidence, almost like they were leading the Council fleet somewhere specific. "Navigation," Kethmore ordered. "Where exactly are the humans taking us?" The navigation officer, a creature that looked like a walking crystal, consulted his displays. "They appear to be leading us toward the asteroid belt, sir. The area between the 4th and 5th planets." "Asteroid belt?" Kethmore frowned. Why would they go there? Asteroids would just get in the way of a proper battle. His tactical officer had a different concern. "Sir, our long-range sensors are having difficulty reading the asteroid field. There seems to be some kind of interference." "What kind of interference?" "Unknown, sir. It's almost like the asteroids are generating some kind of static that makes our scanners less accurate." Kethmore dismissed the concern with a wave of his hand. "Primitive human technology, probably. It doesn't matter. Asteroids can't stop our weapons." The first human ships came into range and the battle began. Council ships opened fire with particle beams that could melt through anything humans could build. The human ships fired back with simple projectile weapons and basic energy guns. Just as predicted, the human ships started dying quickly. Their shields were weak, their armor was thin, and their weapons barely scratched Council ship hulls. Within the first hour, 20 human ships had been destroyed. "Sir," the communications officer reported with satisfaction, "we are receiving surrender signals from the human fleet." "Excellent," Kethmore replied. "Tell them we accept their surrender and they should prepare to be boarded." But something was wrong. The surviving human ships weren't stopping. They were still moving deeper into the asteroid field, and the Council fleet was following them. "Sir," the tactical officer said nervously, "I'm reading some strange energy signatures from the asteroids. It's almost like..." His words were cut off by the most massive explosion Kethmore had ever seen. One of the asteroids, which had looked completely normal on all their scans, suddenly split open like a flower. Inside was a weapon platform the size of a city, and it was firing something that looked like lightning. The energy beam hit the Council ship nearest to it, cutting through its shields like they weren't even there. The ship exploded in a ball of fire that lit up the asteroid field. "What was that?" Kethmore shouted. Before anyone could answer, more asteroids began opening up. Some revealed hidden missile launchers that fired projectiles moving at incredible speeds. Others showed themselves to be camouflaged warships, bigger than anything in the Council fleet. "Sir, we're under attack." The weapons officer screamed. The asteroids are firing at us. On the tactical display, red warning lights showed council ships taking damage. The weapons hitting them weren't the simple guns they had seen from the human ships. These were something completely different, something that could actually hurt council vessels. How is this possible? Kethmore demanded. Our intelligence said humans only had 60 ships and primitive weapons. One of his ship captains appeared on the communication screen, his alien face twisted with panic. Admiral, we're taking heavy damage. These aren't normal asteroids, they're weapons platforms. And the projectiles they're firing. Sir, they're moving at relativistic speeds. Kethmore stared at the tactical display in growing horror. What they had thought was an asteroid field was actually a massive weapons complex. Hundreds of hidden platforms were now revealing themselves, firing weapons that used physics itself as ammunition. A railgun projectile moving at 10% of light speed hit another council ship. The kinetic energy was so enormous that the ship simply ceased to exist, turned into a cloud of superheated plasma in an instant. Sir, new contacts, the sensor officer reported. More human ships are appearing from behind the larger asteroids. These ones are different. The new human ships didn't look like the simple vessels they had been fighting. These were sleek, advanced designs with technology that looked almost alien. Their weapons were firing beams that cut through council shields like scissors through paper. Where did these ships come from? Kethmore shouted. His intelligence officer, looking terrified, checked his databases. Sir, these ships don't match any known human designs. It's like they've been developing secret technology for decades. More explosions lit up the space around them as nuclear mines, hidden among the asteroids for who knew how long, began detonating. Each explosion was carefully timed to catch council ships when their shields were weakest. Admiral, his communications officer reported, we're receiving a transmission from the humans. Put it through, Kethmore ordered. The view screen showed a human woman in a military uniform. She looked calm and confident, like someone who was winning a battle she had planned for years. Admiral Kethmore, she said, this is Admiral Sarah Okafor of the Human Colonial Defense Force. I want to thank you for bringing your fleet exactly where we wanted it. You planned this? Kethmore stammered. We've been preparing for this day for 50 years, Admiral Okafor replied. Did you really think we would just sit around waiting for someone like you to come and conquer us? Another council ship exploded, this one hit by a weapon that seemed to make space itself twist and tear. Surrender now, Admiral Okafor continued, and we might let some of your ships go home to tell others what happens when you threaten humanity. Kethmore looked at his tactical display. In just 20 minutes, he had lost 30 ships. The humans had turned what should have been their weakest point, their home system, into the deadliest trap anyone had ever built. Sir, his tactical officer said quietly, recommend we retreat immediately. We're taking massive casualties and the humans have more surprises waiting for us. But Kethmore's pride wouldn't let him run. All ships concentrate fire on the human command vessel. If we can kill their admiral, maybe we can still win this. 50 council ships turned their weapons toward Admiral Okafor's flagship. But before they could fire, something impossible happened. The space around the human ship began to bend and twist. The council weapons fired, but their energy beams curved away from their target like water flowing around a rock. They have gravity manipulation technology, the science officer whispered. That's impossible. No species has ever figured out how to control gravity like that. Admiral Okafor's voice came through the communication system again. Admiral Kethmore, you're about to learn the most important lesson in human history. We don't just prepare for the wars we expect to fight. We prepare for the wars we hope we never have to fight. More hidden weapons revealed themselves. Asteroid-sized mass drivers began firing projectiles that moved so fast they appeared as streaks of light. Energy weapons that seemed to ignore the laws of physics cut through council formations. Sir, his communications officer said desperately, we're receiving surrender requests from 40 of our ships. They want permission to retreat. Kethmore stared at the tactical display. His mighty fleet, which had never lost a battle, was being destroyed by humans. Humans with their primitive technology and their inferior intellects. How had they hidden so much advanced technology? How had they built weapons that could challenge the Council's best ships? How had they turned their own star system into a weapon? Admiral, his first officer said quietly, we need to retreat. If we stay here, they'll destroy the entire fleet. For the first time in his military career, Admiral Kethmore gave the order he never thought he would have to give. All ships, retreat immediately. Jump to hyperspace as soon as you clear the weapons range. As the surviving Council ships fled the Sol system, Admiral Okafor's voice followed them. Tell the Council what you learned here today. Tell them that humans don't yield. Tell them that if they want to fight, we're ready to give them one. And tell them that this was just our home system. Wait until you see what we've prepared for our colonies. On the mining world of Kythera Prime, deep beneath the surface, Mothkey worker Tsendal felt the ground shake. At first, he thought it was another cave-in. The hegemony didn't care much about worker safety, and collapses happened all the time. But this shaking was different. It came in a pattern. 3 long shakes, 3 short ones, 3 long ones again. Tsendal's large compound eyes widened with understanding. It was the signal they had been waiting for years to hear. Brothers, he whispered to the other Mothkey workers around him, the time has come. The signal meant that somewhere in the galaxy, the humans were fighting the Council. More importantly, it meant that all the secret preparations were about to be revealed. Tsendal reached into his tool bag and pulled out what looked like a normal mining laser, but when he pressed a hidden switch, the device transformed into something much more dangerous. The human trading advisor who had shown him this trick 3 years ago had called it a pulse rifle. All around the mine, other Mothkey workers were making the same discovery. Tools became weapons. Communications devices became military radios. Supply crates revealed hidden armor and ammunition. How long have we been preparing for this? Asked Velkri, a young worker who had never expected to be a soldier. 50 years, Tsendal replied, checking his weapon. Since the first human traders came here and told us that slavery wasn't normal, that other species in the galaxy lived free. Above them in the Hegemony Control Center, Administrator Clixmore was having a very bad day. His screens were showing explosions all across the planet. The Mothkey, who had been perfect slaves for 3,000 years, were suddenly attacking every Hegemony facility at once. How is this possible? Clixmore demanded. The Mothkey barely know how to read. They don't have weapons or military training. His security chief, a heavily armored Hegemony warrior, studied the tactical reports. Sir, they appear to be using advanced weapons. These are not primitive tools. Someone has been supplying them with military equipment. Who? The Mothkey have no contact with anyone except us. Sir, his communications officer interrupted. We're receiving a transmission on all frequencies. It appears to be coming from the human government. The main screen activated, showing President Chen Wei-Lin sitting in what looked like a military command center. Behind her, tactical displays showed battles happening across dozens of star systems. To all oppressed peoples of the galaxy, President Chen began, today is the day we have all been preparing for. The Galactic Council has revealed their true nature by demanding that humanity surrender our freedom. We have refused, and we invite you to refuse as well. Clixmore stared at the screen in horror. She's talking to our slaves directly? For 50 years, President Chen continued, human advisors and traders have been working quietly throughout Council space. We have shared our technology, our tactics, and most importantly, our ideas about freedom. Today we ask our friends to stand with us. On Kythera Prime, the Mothkey rebels heard the message and cheered. In the mines and factories across the planet, the revolution spread like wildfire. But Kythera Prime was not alone. On 17 other worlds, similar uprisings began at exactly the same time. On the water world of Aquanus, the Glennon had been forced to harvest rare crystals from the ocean floor for the Council for 2,000 years. But when the signal came, they revealed that human marine biologists had been teaching them more than just efficient harvesting techniques. Glennon Commander Rivka activated her communication system. All units, Operation Tsunami is now active. Target every Council facility on the planet. The Glennon emerged from the oceans in vehicles that looked nothing like their traditional boats. These were sleek submarines armed with torpedoes and energy weapons. Within hours, every Council base on Aquanus was either destroyed or under siege. In the Xerian system, the plant-like Verdani had been used as living computers for Council ships. Their natural ability to process complex information made them perfect for navigation and tactical calculations. But they had also been calculating something else for decades, the best ways to sabotage the very ships they served on. When the signal came, Every Verdani on every council ship in the system simultaneously began their sabotage operations. Navigation systems failed. Weapons stopped working. Life support began shutting down. Hundreds of council ships found themselves helpless, drifting in space with crews that suddenly couldn't trust their own equipment. On the desert world of Sektar, the warrior race called the Kekani had been forced to serve as soldiers in the council's armies. They were excellent fighters, but they had been kept deliberately ignorant of advanced tactics and technology. Human military historians had been slowly changing that for 30 years. When Kekani General Blade Runner received the coded message, he smiled with all four of his mouths. "Warriors," he announced to his troops, "today we fight for ourselves instead of our oppressors." The Kekani turned their weapons on their council overseers and took control of every military base on their world. More importantly, they took control of the weapons factories that had been producing equipment for the council's armies. Back on Nexus Prime, the council chamber was in complete chaos. Ambassador Veltar was receiving reports of uprisings on 37 different worlds. Species that had served the council faithfully for thousands of years were suddenly rebelling all at once. "How did the humans coordinate this?" demanded the jellyfish-like representative. "Our intelligence said they only had basic communication technology." Director of Intelligence Slicksnore brought up a holographic display showing the rebellion networks. "It appears the humans have been building secret communication systems for decades. Quantum entanglement networks hidden in their trading posts and diplomatic facilities." "Trading posts?" Veltar screamed. "You mean the humans have been planning this since they first made contact with us?" "It appears so, sir. They've been placing what they called cultural advisors and technical consultants throughout our territory. These people have been training local populations in warfare, sabotage, and revolutionary tactics." The rock creature representative made grinding sounds of anger. "The Kalori mining colonies in my system have declared independence. They're using human-made weapons to fight my security forces. The Tokbari are jamming all our communications in the Vega sector," reported the tree-like being. "They're using some kind of technology that makes our quantum communicators useless. 3 of my patrol fleets have been destroyed by species that were supposed to be primitive," added the silver-scaled water breather. "The Morgath used some kind of gravity weapon that crushed my ships like empty cans." Veltar activated the emergency council protocols. "All available military forces are to crush these rebellions immediately. Use any force necessary." "Sir," Intelligence Director Slicksnore said nervously, "that might not be possible. Our military forces are scattered across the galaxy, and many of them have Verdani navigation specialists and Kekani security troops. We can't trust our own people anymore." A new voice interrupted their panic. "Honored council members, this is Admiral Sarah Okafor of the Human Colonial Defense Force." The communication screen activated, showing the human admiral aboard her flagship. Behind her, displays showed the burning wreckage of council ships. "I wanted to personally inform you that your enforcement fleet has been defeated," Admiral Okafor continued calmly. "Admiral Kethmore and the survivors of his force are fleeing toward council space as we speak." "Impossible," Veltar gasped. 300 ships against 63 human vessels. "You cannot have won." "You made the same mistake everyone makes when they fight humans," Admiral Okafor replied. "You assumed we would fight fair. You assumed we would follow your rules. You assumed we would face you in open battle with equal forces." She paused and smiled coldly. "Humans don't fight fair. We fight to win. And we've been preparing to win this war since the day we learned you existed." "What do you want?" asked the jellyfish creature desperately. "We want the same thing we've always wanted," Admiral Okafor answered. "Freedom. For ourselves and for everyone else who wants it. The days when you could keep species enslaved just because you had better technology are over." "This is chaos," Veltar protested. "Without the Council maintaining order, the galaxy will tear itself apart in wars." "Maybe," Admiral Okafor agreed, "but that's better than the order you've been maintaining. At least if species fight each other, they'll be fighting as equals, not as masters and slaves." On the tactical displays around the council chamber, more red warning lights appeared. Rebellions were spreading to new systems every hour. Species that had been enslaved for millennia were finally learning that they had choices. "The humans have taught everyone in the galaxy how to fight," Intelligence Director Slicksnore reported grimly. "Every species now knows that the Council can be challenged. Even if we crush these rebellions, the idea of freedom will spread." Admiral Okafor's transmission continued. To any council species listening to this broadcast, you have a choice to make. You can continue trying to rule through fear and oppression, or you can join us in building something better. And if we refuse? Veltar asked. Admiral Okafor's smile got wider and more dangerous. Then you'll find out what humans do. 6 months after the Battle of Seoul, President Chen Wei-lin stood at the observation deck of Freedom Station, looking out at a sight that would have been impossible just a year ago. Ships from 43 different species floated in space together, their crews working side by side to build something the galaxy had never seen before. The station itself was built from the wreckage of Council ships that had died in the Sol system. Human engineers had worked with Verdani biotechnicians and Kekani metallurgists to turn the debris into something beautiful. The twisted metal had been reformed into graceful curves that housed meeting chambers, laboratories, and living spaces for hundreds of different species. Madam President, Admiral Okafor said, approaching with a datapad in her hand, "The final vote counts are in. The Universal Declaration of Sapient Rights has been approved by all 43 member species." Chen smiled as she looked at the document. It was written in dozens of languages, from human English to the complex chemical signatures that the Mothki used for communication. But the meaning was the same in every language. No species had the right to enslave another, no matter how advanced their technology might be. "What about the Council holdouts?" Chen asked. "The hegemony is still fighting, but they've lost most of their slave worlds," Admiral Okafor reported. "The Dominion has retreated to their core systems and sealed their borders. They're not attacking anyone, but they're not cooperating either." "And the others?" "Surprisingly, 4 Council species have asked to join the Alliance. They claim they were forced to participate in the Council system and want to make up for their past actions." Chen nodded. She had expected some of the Council members to see which way the wind was blowing and switch sides. Not all of them had been evil overlords. Some had just been species that got trapped in a system they couldn't escape from. Through the observation window, she could see human ships working alongside vessels that looked like living trees, crystal sculptures, and flowing water. The diversity was beautiful, but it also represented something more important: proof that different species could work together as equals. "Ma'am," Admiral Okafor continued, "there's something else. We've received a request for asylum from a group of hegemony citizens. They want to defect to our alliance." "Civilian refugees or military?" Chen asked. "Military. 3 ship captains and their crews. They say they're tired of fighting wars of conquest and want to help build something better." Chen considered this. The alliance needed to be careful about accepting defectors. Some might be genuine, but others could be spies or saboteurs. "Set up interviews with our intelligence people," she decided. "If they're sincere, we can use their knowledge of hegemony tactics. If they're spies, well, we've gotten good at dealing with those." A soft chime indicated that someone was requesting permission to enter the observation deck. Chen looked up to see Tsendal, the Mothki leader who had helped coordinate the rebellion on Kithara Prime. His large, compound eyes reflected the light from the stars, making them look like jewels. "President Chen," Tsendal said in his soft, clicking voice, "I wanted to thank you again for what your species has done for mine." "You don't need to thank us," Chen replied. "You and your people did the fighting. We just gave you the tools." "It was more than tools," Tsendal insisted. "You gave us hope. For 3,000 years, my people believed that slavery was our natural condition. We thought that because the hegemony had better technology, they had the right to rule us." He paused, searching for the right words in the human language he was still learning. "Your people taught us that technology doesn't give anyone the right to hurt others. That freedom is something every thinking being deserves, no matter how strong or weak they are." Chen felt a warmth in her chest. This was why they had fought. Not for territory or resources or power, but for the simple idea that all sapient life had value. "What will your people do now?" she asked. "We're rebuilding our world," Tsendal replied. "The humans have shared their terraforming technology with us. In a few years, Kithara Prime will be green again instead of just a giant mining operation." "And your children?" Tsendal's mandibles curved in what Chen had learned was a Mothki smile. "They will grow up free. They will learn to read and write and think for themselves. Some will become scientists, some will be artists, some will explore the stars. They will have choices that my generation never had." A communication alert sounded throughout the station. "All delegates to the main assembly hall. The treaty signing ceremony will begin in 10 minutes. Chen straightened her formal jacket and prepared to make history. Today, 43 species would sign the Charter of the Free Worlds Alliance, officially ending thousands of years of council domination and beginning something entirely new. As they walked through the station's corridors, Chen reflected on how much had changed. 6 months ago, she had been the president of a species that most of the galaxy considered primitive and unimportant. Now she was helping to forge an alliance that included some of the most advanced civilizations in known space. The assembly hall was enormous, designed to accommodate the wildly different physical needs of dozens of species. The atmospheric controls maintained separate environmental zones so that water breathers could sit next to methane breathers, who could sit next to beings that lived in pure energy fields. At the center of the hall stood a podium made from materials contributed by every member species. It was both a symbol of unity and a practical demonstration that different peoples could create something beautiful together. As Chen approached the podium to give the opening speech, she saw something that made her heart skip. In the viewing gallery, reserved for observers, sat Ambassador Veltar of the Hegemony. He was in restraints and under guard, awaiting trial for war crimes, but he had been allowed to watch the ceremony. His compound eyes met hers across the room, and she saw something in them that surprised her, not hatred or anger, but what looked almost like respect. "Fellow sapients," Chen began, her voice carried to every corner of the hall by translation systems that rendered her words into dozens of languages. 6 months ago, many of you were slaves. Your worlds were controlled by others, your resources stolen. Your children raised to serve masters who saw you as property. She paused and looked around the room at the incredible diversity of life forms gathered together. Today, you are free. Not because we gave you freedom. No one can give freedom to another. You are free because you chose to fight for it, because you decided that liberty was worth any price, even your lives. In the audience, she could see beings from species she had never heard of 6 months ago. Some looked like plants, others like living crystals, still others like clouds of organized gas. But they all had one thing in common. They had chosen freedom over safety, uncertainty over slavery. The charter we signed today does not create an empire, Chen continued. It creates something the galaxy has never seen before, an alliance of equals. No species will rule over others. No world will be forced to serve masters they did not choose. Every member of this alliance will have the right to govern themselves, to keep what they produce, and to help their neighbors without being commanded to do so. She gestured to the document waiting to be signed, its pages glowing with holographic text in dozens of scripts. This charter recognizes 3 fundamental principles. First, that all sapient life has inherent worth, regardless of technology level or military power. Second, that no species has the right to rule another through force or fear. And third, that cooperation freely given is stronger than obedience enforced by weapons. The hall erupted in sounds of approval from dozens of different types of vocal cords, breathing systems, and communication methods. As the signing ceremony proceeded, each species representative approached the podium to add their agreement to the charter. Some signed with hands, others with tentacles, still others with tools designed for their specific anatomy. The Verdani representative grew a special flower that released spores in a pattern that counted as their signature. When it was humanity's turn, Chen signed with a simple pen, using the same type of writing instrument her ancestors had used to sign documents hundreds of years ago. Some traditions were worth preserving. After the ceremony, as delegates mingled and celebrated, Chen found herself approached by Commander Rivka of the Glennon. The aquatic being moved in a specialized mobility suit filled with water from her homeworld. "President Chen," Rivka said through her suit's speakers, "my people have a question. What happens when this alliance becomes strong enough to challenge other galactic powers? Will we become conquerors like the Council was?" It was a good question, and one that Chen had been thinking about for months. "Commander," she replied, "the moment we start forcing our beliefs on others, we become what we fought against. This alliance exists to defend freedom, not to impose it. If other species want to join us, they're welcome. If they prefer their own systems of government, that's their choice. And if they attack us," Chen's expression hardened slightly, "then they'll learn what the Council learned. Humans don't start fights, but we finish them. And now we have friends who feel the same way." Later that night, Chen stood alone in her quarters aboard Freedom Station. Through her window, She could see the lights of ships from dozens of worlds,